Welcome to IATV's Subject to Change magazine. The name is subject to change, the content is subject to change, hell, even the format is subject to change. I'm Josh Average, and I'll be talking to you for about an hour every month about what tickles my fancy. It'll feature my thoughts, my feelings, my writings, and anything else I think would be fun to share with you. This is Volume 0, Issue 0, or what I'm considering a proof of concept issue. I've been kicking around this idea for some time now, so let's finally throw something together and see if it has legs. Poke it, prod it, and give us your feedback. If you like what you hear, give us a like or drop a comment below. On this issue, we've got two topics. First up, I've stopped watching WWE, and I'm excited to start watching AEW weekly, so hear me talk about that. And then after that, I've got an article I wrote about Dragon Ball movies and canon that I'm reading to you. I hope you enjoy. It's kind of been bumming me out how much wrestling has been bumming me out, I guess is the best way to put that. I started watching wrestling right after I graduated high school. My first pay-per-view was WrestleMania 30, and I've loved it ever since. I think the art form is so cool, and, you know, for a while there, I was watching as much as I could, you know, and I've come and gone from my love of wrestling. You know, sometimes I would only watch, you know, the big events. I would watch a WrestleMania, maybe a Royal Rumble and a SummerSlam and a Survivor Series maybe, and that would be about it. And I've noticed recently that I had been watching a lot less. And it really came to a head with WrestleMania 42. I think the easiest way to look at it is that WWE in general, I was just very disaffected with them. I just wasn't very interested in what they were doing. To start off with, it's just a horrible company with horrible politics and just truly rancid vibes. Like, that's kind of the top, right? And I think that's true with a lot of sports adjacent things. You know, hard to be interested in the UFC when everyone surrounding the UFC is people like a Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? And so it was a similar thing here where the WWE is just horrible, right? Especially with the Vince McMahon lawsuit and other things going on surrounding that. And then on top of that, the wrestling is just terrible. And as I mentioned, it all kind of came to a head with WrestleMania 42. The top line is that it was more commercials than wrestling. For 2 nights of wrestling, for 2 nights of pay-per-view, it was more commercials than wrestling. And that's just ridiculous to me. First of all, you're paying a premium to get a pay-per-view, or a premium live event, they call them now, which is ridiculous. But the idea there is that you are getting something special, that you are spending your money and your time to get something that you wouldn't see on television, that you wouldn't see on Netflix, that you wouldn't see on the CW. Is that where they also show stuff? Where's SmackDown live? I don't know, and I'm not looking it up. So the idea that I would spend all this time and spend all this money to watch mostly commercials when I could just do that with my current Netflix subscription, it's just a no-go. And then what little wrestling is left is just bad. It's just not very engaging. The stuff happening in the ring isn't very cool or good or fun to watch. And none of the stuff that ties it all together, the why we're fighting, the storylines, the characters, nothing's really engaging. Like, I feel like maybe the most engaging wrestler that I can think of off the top of my head with WWE is maybe a CM Punk. Maybe a Rhea Ripley. I'm just not interested in that. And on top of that, it feels like now having some space from WrestleMania 42 that they're also just unwilling to like tell interesting stories or do interesting things. And I think the easiest way to kind of see this happen in real time is the Brock Lesnar versus Obafemi stuff, right? Brock gets completely demolished in that WrestleMania. Was it the opener on night 2, I think? He gets absolutely demolished and he loses, and then he leaves his gloves and stuff in the ring, acts like he's retiring and leaves. And then he comes out on some Raw or whatever and beats down Obafemi as if the stuff at WrestleMania didn't happen. And I think this is a really good microcosm of like everything, right? You have Obafemi, who's like really good, a really interesting person to watch, super athletic. I think he's got it, right? Like he's doing some awesome stuff in the ring that is fun to see. And instead of letting that flourish, you instead put all your money back on Brock, a guy who I've been watching since WrestleMania 30 and who I cannot count on one hand how many good matches he's had. Everything has been kind of the same. He just comes in, does some suplexes, does his suplex city bitch, wins, and then leaves and doesn't really show up. And then you have the same Paul Heyman nonsense that you almost always have. Like, nothing interesting is going on there. And he's never, like, in the 10 plus years I've been watching and seeing him do stuff, he's just not interesting. Nothing there is interesting about Brock Lesnar. And feeding a newer talent to him so that he can come do his barely competent storytelling in the ring is not interesting. It's not something I want to see. And this, set aside the fact that he's named in a lawsuit, right? That's setting all of that aside. But also, that's in the back of your head, right? Like, this is a guy who, during that WrestleMania weekend, during the Hall of Fame thing, the crowd was going nuts and chanting for Vince McMahon, who is no longer with the company for extremely valid reasons and is named in a lawsuit currently. And then on top of that, you have that same crowd going bonkers for Brock Lesnar, again, a guy named in a sex trafficking lawsuit. So this is it, right? It's not only is all of the secondary stuff bad, right? All of the stuff that's outside of just watching what is happening in the ring, but also the stuff that is happening in the ring is not interesting because the person that you are hitching your wagon to, that you're deciding, well, actually, we should probably just like start appeasing him more for some reason and making him a bigger star and you know, building him up, is just not very good at it. Brock's just not good at it. Has not put together a good wrestling match in, like I said, it just hasn't put together a good wrestling match in the 10 years I've been watching. It kind of insane to decide to keep him around and, you know, make sure that he's feeling good about this stuff and that he's actually going to reverse any momentum given to younger talent. Ridiculous. So all in all, WWE is just a bad time on all fronts, right? The performance art of wrestling that is being pushed, it is being pushed to the side in the name of commercials and sponsorships. And then what's left of the art of wrestling is just simply bad. And it's all in the name of uplifting horrible people like Vince McMahon and Brock Lesnar and partnering with the current administration. So, like, at every angle I look at this, it's hard for me to even figure out a way to watch this at all, right? For WrestleMania weekend, I managed to get a free trial to Fubo TV, which gives you access to ESPN Unlimited, and ESPN Unlimited gives you access to WrestleMania. So I did all of that for free, so I didn't have to pay for it. And honestly, that felt like it was too much of a time sink investment. Like, setting all that stuff up was way more time, way more energy than it was worth for WrestleMania's nights 1 and 2. Just ridiculous. So, because I'm so uninterested in watching WWE, I've decided that I would start watching AEW in earnest now. I've kind of checked in here and there, basically since they started, just because I thought, I mean, even if I wasn't going to watch AEW, it was good that it was around. Not that I was necessarily like a WWE fanboy and that like the WWE could do no wrong up until recently. Like that was never it. It was just that like I'm already watching this stuff. It'd be hard to juggle to another company and all of their stuff on top of this, and like spend the money. Especially like I think the other thing too is that when I got into watching wrestling, the value proposition was the infamous $9.99 for the WWE Network, and that was my first WrestleMania. It was $10, so it's really hard to beat $10. So to then go to a place that's actually like charging significantly more money for their pay-per-views, it was a hard sell. You know what I mean? But I would still try to like keep up and like see what was going on. You know, people follow people on Twitter. You can see tweets of people posting different things from what's going on over there, and it always seemed kind of cool, but I just never really like took the time to get into it, and I'm really enjoying my time getting into AEW and not paying attention to what's happening at WWE anymore. Now, to be clear, nothing I am about to say about my enjoyment of AEW means that I think AEW is spotless, right? I'm not saying that it is like the bastion of hope within wrestling. I'm not saying that it is the perfect company with perfect people, with perfect politics. Like, as far as I'm aware, their current world champion, as of my recording of this Friday, May 22nd, was named in Speaking Out. So, and that's just off the top of my head. I don't know any of the other. I don't really know any of the other wrestlers outside of that one, and that's the only one I really know of their roster. As I'm getting into this again, so like, keep that in mind, right? I just don't know. I have not heard anything. That is literally the only thing I know. So I cannot say like, oh my God, perfect company, perfect politics, perfect wrestlers. You get it. I will say though, it has been a breath of fresh air. Top of the line is that the wrestling is actually engaging. One of the big things I've been noticing as I'm like watching wrestling more now is that there seems to be a bit of a lost art and like following through on the movements. Say someone's like doing like an elbow strike to the kind of head region, right? A lot of times it just looks like they're holding back. They're not like, the idea is that in like most, as far as I'm aware, having only taken karate when I was a child, and remembering that, as far as I'm aware, the idea is that you want to punch through whatever you're trying to hit, right? You're trying to strike through whatever you're trying to hit. And that never visually comes across, or not never. I'm noticing that a lot of times in wrestling that it's not coming across. So it'll feel like a lot of times people will do something and it'll look like they're holding back in some way. And it really is like, it's a little nails on the chalkboard to me visually seeing that. And this isn't to say that AEW is perfect and all of the wrestlers don't do that, but it is to say that I'm noticing it a lot less than I did when I was watching literally WrestleMania. And I think that there's just cool stuff happening, right? Fairway to Hell happened, I don't know how long ago now at this point, a week or so ago. And not only is it like good wrestling, like I'm watching really good wrestling, really enjoying Speedball Mike Bailey. But like there was a Darby Allin Pac match that I think was the main event of Fairway to Hell, which was just a fun name for a random episode of Collision that they did on a golf course or part of a golf course. And they were just like power bombing each other into sand traps and throwing sand at each other and wrestling on the green and then jumping off of like large structures to go through tables. Like it ruled. Like there was such cool stuff happening where the wrestling was engaging and they're willing to be a little bit more goofy with it. They're willing to like just take some chances and be a little silly with it in a way that like I haven't seen before in watching wrestling outside of like I've been taking a peek at like old WCW Nitros, and I'm seeing kind of a very familiar vibe there of like, well, we're just gonna like try stuff. We're just gonna do things, and if it's good, hey, maybe we'll do it again. If it doesn't work, then like we'll try something else. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting, and it really feels like they're really doing a good job at that, and in a way I really like. And then on top of that, while I don't necessarily think I'm clicking with a lot of the storylines that are happening, I am at least very engaged and interested in like the characters that are happening, or the characters that are showing up on screen. For example, like I'm really enjoying Speedball and Kevin Knight, Jet Speed, that tag team. Speedball as a character just seems like really cool, like super skilled, lots of like cool like kicks, and I can't remember the the martial arts they say he knows, but like he's doing awesome. He seems super skilled, has a fun personality, and like seems to be genuinely friends with his tag partner. And Kevin Knight also seems to be just as genuinely invested in the friendship as Speedball. So it's like just a really interesting like dynamic that's happening there. And I'll get to this later. Actually, I'll just get to it now. But the end of Dynamite and the beginning of Collision on May 20th, they had like a 3-hour long live thing going on where they did both shows back to back instead of one on Wednesday, one on Saturday, because they have the pay-per-view this weekend. The ending of Dynamite, I guess hour 2 ending of Dynamite, was that it was Darby Allin versus Speedball for the World Championship, and Speedball loses. The storyline of Darby Allin's whole thing is that he's a fighting champion. So literally any time he can defend the championship, he will defend it, even though he's like a handful of days out for a giant pay-per-view, wherein the match stipulation is that MJF, one of the top bad guys of the company, wants a match with Darby Allin and doesn't think he deserves to have the championship, despite the fact that he has the championship and won the championship. And so in order for him to get this championship title match, MJF had to put his hair on the line. So if he loses, he has to shave. If he wins, he gets the title. Like, but that's it. He doesn't just get a rematch. He has to put something on the line. That's interesting in and of itself, right? But then Speedball loses, so Darby Allin is still champion as he's leading into Double or Nothing this weekend. And Kevin Knight comes out and is basically like, I can't remember like the exact words he was saying, but like the gist of the thrust of what he was saying was that like, Speedball, like, you're doing amazing. Like, it sucks that you didn't get it this time, but it doesn't mean you won't get it next time. And that I'll always be here for you to like see you succeed. And like you did it. You did a great job out there, Darby. Like you made him put everything on the line, and you still won, and that's awesome. Like you are a good representation of the world champion, and like you are world champion material. On top of that, you better kick MJF's ass because we want to see that dude bald. We want to see that asshole bald. You have all of our support. You go get them. And like, that's cool because I think that a lot of times when a title comes into the picture for anything, no matter what alliance, no matter like if they're a good guy or a bad guy in the ring, what ends up happening is that they all become assholes because the title is on the line. Like they're so clouded with championship gold that they just become a jerk, and none of the actual good guy stuff stays with them for very long. I think John Cena is like a really good example of this, is that he is a good guy, but he's also just kind of a big asshole. And like the incongruency is just kind of like jarring and not necessarily like commented upon or like good. It's just like the default that wrestlers fall into. So to see this be avoided is really cool, because these all seem to be, I don't know what Darby Allin's whole deal is. Good guy, bad guy. But like Speedball and Kevin Knight seem to be good guys. So it's nice that that all happened. It's nice that they lifted up someone who also seems to be a good guy, because he is going up against MJF. And that, like, yeah, of course everyone wants championship gold, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be a jerk about it. You can just be a good competitor and just be like, I'll get him next time. But like, I'm glad that it's you. You know, if it has to be anyone, I'm glad it's you. Like, that's, I think, of like a very legitimate and like interesting way to go about these storylines. And then on top of that, it's cool that this storyline at all intersected at all, and like that these characters were passing through to kind of get momentum for both of them, right? It's another thing for Darby Allin to see that like people have his support, that he's not just like he's gonna be alone in the ring, right? Like that's just how it is with a one-on-one match, right? But like people have his back. People are putting their trust, is not the right word, but like they're putting their belief in Darby Allin, and that's cool. And on top of that, like, I don't know, it's just cool. It's just cool that like the intersection happened and nobody seemed like weird in that whole thing. It all just seemed like it really helped everybody out. And like that, I'm gonna use this word a lot, but that was also extremely engaging. Like, it's just engaging television to see that happen and see something different happen than what I'm used to with professional wrestling. And then some other things, like really, really quickly, that I'm like, again, characters that I'm like really interested in. I don't know what's like up with Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. But I like that there's some type of like CrossFit death cult. Like, that's just fun. I know that Will Ospreay, whatever. He like had an injury, and so I guess he's been working with the Death Riders to like get back into ring shape. Which is kind of leading into his thing with Samoa Joe. I think that's cool. Another quick aside, I have like some notes that I'm going off of, and I didn't write this down, so this may not be as like structured as some of my other thoughts. But something cool that I thought was happening too was that I think that with AEW being so, you know, willing to acknowledge that other things exist. Now, I know that Ring of Honor is owned by, is it Tony Khan? Right? Or AEW in general, whatever. I know that they're all part of the same thing. It's Ring of Honor at this point is kind of their equivalent of NXT, like a developmental company that they could kind of put talent into and pluck talent out of to kind of give them some experience to then bring them up to a main roster in the big leagues. But it is cool that there was something. It was something with Samoa Joe is like leading some people, like he's got like some other people with him, and then Jay Lethal has got some people with him, and they were using old Ring of Honor footage to show that like Jay Lethal and Samoa Joe used to like fight in old Ring of Honor, like however many years ago when they were like on the independent scene, and I thought that was just so cool, like that was even something they could like reference, right? And I know that they were both in. Were they both in TNA at some point too? And I know that they have an agreement with WWE, so they wouldn't be able to use that stuff. But like, you know, there's just people coming in and out. I mean, I think that someone is part of, is it New Japan Pro Wrestling? Like some people have like New Japan Pro Wrestling titles that are just showing up on television. Like, that's cool. Like that's just a cool thing. It's so cool to see a company go, pro wrestling is bigger than just us. It's not just this company with this television show on this channel. It is worldwide. You know, there are people all over the place competing for titles, and they're all important, and they're all unique, and they all bring their little something. to the table. And I just think that's really cool. Another character that I'm really interested in and kind of bummed out about now is Willow Nightingale. She has a very like NXT Bailey energy that I really like. That is kind of that was missing for a long time, and in these in pro wrestling, I feel like, or at least like in the what I've been paying attention to, right? Something I really enjoyed about Bailey in NXT was just like how extremely positive she was when a lot of women's wrestling was focused on like bickering and being catty in really rough ways. And it's nice that this so it was nice to see her, and then eventually she like lost a lot of that positivity to her character. And I think she's still good, but like I'm just less interested now. And so this is kind of a fun splitting of the difference, right? You see it in her logo where the willow is like nice bubbly, like balloon lettering, and then the nightingale is like your kind of generic death metal. I don't know what you call that, but looks like tree roots, like text. Where she's like obviously a person who's like smiley and like fun loving, but is also like has this edge to her that she's wearing on her sleeve. It's not like a hidden thing. It's not like this thing that she has to like hide from the world. Like, oh, she's like bubbly, but she's got this hidden edge and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it's like, it's just a part of her. And I find that really, again, very engaging, very compelling. And it sucks that she's having to drop the title and won't be in the Owen Hart Cup due to injuries because like she's cool. I'm also not sure like what other women on the roster are getting that kind of engaging story. I think there's that one tag team that they come out and do like these 5-minute matches and just kill another woman tag team. And that's kind of fun, but also it's like, all right, cool. Like it's less than 5 minutes every single time it happens. I don't know where they want to go with this down the line. And it doesn't seem like it's really building to anything outside of like slowly just building steam, if that makes sense, like building momentum, but not necessarily like towards any direction as far as I can tell. So there's that. Another character, Orange Cassidy. I'm not quite sure I understand what his deal is, but I kind of dig him. You know, he's like one of two people that have like cool, wrestling. I'm sorry, they're one of like two people on the roster who have, like licensed music. I think it's him and it's what's his name? Jack Perry? Is that right? Is it Jungle Boy? Is that his name? I'm saying that out loud and it doesn't sound right. I guess correct me in the comments if you'd like. That's been, he's been interesting. I don't get the hands in the pockets thing. I feel like maybe the like, I don't give a hoot attitude is like kind of up and down and not extremely consistent, or at least I'm not seeing where the consistency lies. But what can you say? I mean, he's still interesting. I still like him. I still think he's fun. I like, was it the Conglomeration, that little group he's part of? I think that's just like, it's just fun to just have a bunch of random good guys hanging out together and doing their thing. A character that I remember that isn't around anymore. I don't know what his deal is. I need to just look it up and find out my answer. But like, I remember Eddie Kingston being like a really big deal last handful of times I've checked in on AEW, and he's like nowhere to be found. I want to say he had an injury or something, but like I miss him. He was like really, again, really engaging, really interesting guy. I liked his vibe of like, I'm always interested in a character that is like just trying to be authentic, I guess. Like it just seems like it's them. Whoever the person is behind Eddie Kingston, the actual like guy, seems like that is showing through in whatever he's doing, right? And I think that that's really compelling to me. Like that's just fun wrestling, I'm a big fan of like really goofy stuff, supernaturally things. I liked The Undertaker when he was an undead wizard. I think that's kind of cool when wrestling has characters like that. But also, I think it's neat to have characters who are just like some aspect of the real human being who is in that ring, and just like latching onto that aspect and like bringing it up to 11, but it is still authentic because it's a part of them that really exists. They're just turning it up to some degree. And I don't know, something about him I really like. Because I feel like I've been, glazing the company a lot and what I've been watching. I will say that like I have a hard time understanding what the actual storylines are going into this, right? Like the only one I can name off the top of my head is the Darby Allin MJF stuff. And I feel like I haven't quite understood why they're so against each other outside of the fact that like MJF doesn't like Allin, and thinks that he MJF would be a better title holder and face of the company. But that's, I don't know, like that's kind of like the big complaint, is that like these characters are interesting and I'm enjoying them, but like the storylines themselves just feel very lackluster and a little ill-defined in a way that's like, that is something that maybe it's just something I'm used to, right? I think coming from WWE, the storylines are like very, very, very well defined, just for better or worse, normally for worse. And I think that's something that's getting lost in my transition, is that some of these things just aren't as well defined. Where I'm just like, I get that people like fighting over gold, they're doing X, Y, or Z to, make it further in a tournament and so on. But I'm like, I'm not seeing the stuff. I'm not seeing like the big storylines that I'm used to. And that's not necessarily bad, but it is something that I'm like having to get used to, where like the characters are engaging, but the storylines are just kind of like whatever. I'm most excited to root for my guy and like see a cool character do cool things and be cool. As of right now, Double or Nothing is this weekend, and I feel really good to be like very excited for a weekend of wrestling. I got a 3-day weekend. I might watch it live, even if there's money. If there's like some money I can squirrel away for that would be awesome. And it's just fun, right? Like, I think the entire card, I was looking at the card earlier today because I put out a poster, and like this AEW Women's 4-Way Championship seems cool. I don't know what a Stadium Stampede is, so that'll be fun to see. All of this Owen Hart, the Owen Hart Cup stuff is awesome. I'm excited to see Samoa Joe versus Will Ospreay. I want to see MJF shave his head. I want to see it so bad. So hopefully that happens. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's cool. I'm excited to see it. It's fun that this is happening. It's fun to be excited for wrestling again. And hopefully in another month or two, we'll check in again with my wrestling stuff and see how everything's been going for me and if I've been enjoying it. Dragon Ball movies were never meant to be canon. There's a subset of the Dragon Ball fandom that tries very hard to fit the DBZ movies in with the rest of the anime, and I'm not entirely sure why they do it. On their face, just watching what happens in the movies and having a working memory of the events of Dragon Ball, it makes any and all attempts to fit these movies into the canon a fool's errand. That's something that's been talked about to death, and I don't think hearing yet another Dragon Ball nerd talk about how Goku's gi, Gohan's hair, and Piccolo's existence means that some movie can't fit in the timeline. The more interesting way to dismantle the whole idea is to think about why these movies were made, what the movies try to accomplish, and that the narrative of Dragon Ball cannot account for any of that. Let's start by looking at the first Cooler movie, Dragon Ball Z Cooler's Revenge. This movie comes out July 20th, 1991 at the Toei Anime Fair and tells the story of Frieza's brother Cooler, who has his sights set on revenge against Goku for beating Frieza during the Namek Saga. Goku and pals fight Cooler's goons in Cooler, Goku goes Super Saiyan, Goku saves the day. If we look at the movie, the big thing that happens here is the Cooler transformations and Goku's Super Saiyan transformation. And it really does feel like a beat-for-beat retread of what happens in the anime and in the manga during the Frieza arc. Feels a bit odd, don't you think? If we look at what was happening in the manga between March 9th, 1991, when the previous movie Lord Slug released, and July 20th, 1991, we see something interesting. Kanzenshu notes, Son Goku first transformed into a Super Saiyan in chapter 317 of the manga on the 19th of March, 1991, just 10 days after this movie premiered. The Super Saiyan transformation seen in this movie was conceived by the anime staff prior to this and is different from what Akira Toriyama eventually solidified. So it seems like the previous movie was made during a period of time when the Super Saiyan transformation was being teased and talked about in the manga, but before it was shown on the page, meaning they just went and did their own thing when making this movie. By the time Cooler's Revenge comes out on July 20th, 1991, the last manga chapter, Son Goku Comes Home, is released, which is 4 chapters into the then current Artificial Human arc. The team has seen the Super Saiyan transformation, and according to Kanzenshu, Toriyama has provided designs for Super Saiyan Goku, Cooler, and Cooler's goons. With all this in mind, it looks like the movie exists partially to take one more stab at depicting the Super Saiyan transformation in a movie. As noted above, this movie is released during the 1991 Summer Toei Anime Fair. Kanzenshu describes the fair as such. The event originated from the Toei Manga Festival that was established by Toei in 1969 as a way to showcase their popular children's series as theatrical films during seasonal breaks in the school year. In Japan, almost all schools below the university level run a 3-term school year, trimester system, with a vacation period of several weeks to a month at the end of each trimester. Spring vacation, summer vacation, and winter vacation. These movies were screened together back-to-back in various cities across Japan, with a typical total running time of roughly 3 hours. Most festivals would last roughly 1 month, or as long as the seasonal vacation allowed. Putting this all together, here's what I see. A movie was made attempting to recapture lightning in a bottle. Goku turning Super Saiyan during the Frieza fight was a huge deal, and happened just around the time a new movie would be made by Toei to take advantage of nationwide school holidays. They'd already tried to depict a Super Saiyan transformation earlier in the year, but because the manga hadn't shown off the transformation by the time Lord Slug finished production, their version differed greatly from what would show up in the manga. Now that they had the official transformation and the exact story beats that would lead up to that transformation, they can try and do the whole thing over again so they could sell it all to children on a school break. If this movie is canon or not almost doesn't matter, because that's not what the movie is there for. Nothing that happens in these movies really impacts the ongoing story being told in the manga. It's not like Goku and the gang are talking about Cooler in the lead up to the Cell games. According to Kanzenshu, Daizenshu 6, quote, classifies this movie as an event that fits within the continuity of the original story, end quote, but its reasoning is based on one line in the whole movie and doesn't take into account all the other weird inconsistencies about the movie. But we can set all that aside because it's not there to flesh anything out. The conflicts that happen in these movies have no bearing on the narrative or the characters outside of these 47 minutes of animation. It's a movie that exists to be another adventure with Goku and friends that could be sold to kids in the summer of 1991. This is something that is pretty clear when you look at other Dragon Ball Z movies as well. The next movie, The Return of Cooler, is released March 7th, 1982 and features a Super Saiyan Vegeta with a Super Saiyan Goku. Super Android 13 was released July 11th, 1992, and plays off of having Trunks and the Artificial Humans introduced. BoJack Unbound is released July 10th, 1993, and capitalized heavily on Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 transformation and Gohan's defeat of Cell. Throughout the production of the anime, we would get these almost hour-long specials that just try to reheat the cool parts of the anime and manga that have already happened in order to get kids into movie theaters. These stories aren't meant to be part of the overall narrative. They're meant to be trend-chasing bits of animation, and that's completely fine. but you do have to acknowledge that's what they are. This has been IATV's Subject to Change magazine. If you have comments, questions, or any other such writings you want to throw our way, you can always leave a comment down below. We've also opened up our email inbox, so feel free to write to us at mailbag@implausibly-average.online. Every magazine needs a letters to the editor section, so who knows, we may put your comment or email into the next issue. If you like what we're doing here at Implausibly Average TV, consider checking out our Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/implausibly-average, where you can tip us if you'd like. If you're into more of a recurring support, we have a membership that starts at just $1 a month. The intro theme was I've Seen Them Do It, and was made for us by the talented Darling Demon Eclipse. The second song to play was WCW Sting Crow Theme by The Enigma TNG. And the third song to play was Go For It from Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2. This issue was written, recorded, and edited by Josh Average. Special thanks, as always, to V Average. See you next month.